Okay, Calista. So we're going to use a hammer to cook a steak on a grill. So the hammer is to flip the steak. Okay, I get it. Yeah. All right, let's go and take a look. So we've got the girl, and she's thinking about a steak. So so she goes from thinking about a steak out to the grill where there's a steak on the grill. She's thinking no spatula. She goes to the drawer, finds a hammer, flips the steak, and the steak's on the plate. The plate. Okay, so generally, the flow works well, but I think there's some missing steps. Now, if you remember um, it's some of the critique videos that I had posted, and also some of my comments in the announcement were to try to shoot for at least 10 to 12 frames, because right now I think that just with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 frames, I don't think we have a complete narrative. We don't. The ideas don't flow as expeditiously as I think they could by adding more frames. I'll talk about that in a second. But generally, we got the general flow here, right? So we got the general idea. Now, a couple of suggestions. So we go from the first where she's hungry and she's going to have a steak. Okay. And then we go from that to actually cooking the steak. So I would say at this point, let's give her a spatula and have her try to flip the steak, and then all of a sudden the spatula breaks. Because that way you're not just abruptly introducing there's no spatula. There's a story behind the reason there's no spatula, and that's that it's a broken spatula. That's going to add some engagement to the narrative. Okay, so then we go, then you want to show her with this look on her face like, oh no, now what? So she goes from the thought process to cooking the steak. The steak's on the grill. She breaks the spatula. This is the introduction of the problem. Okay, so or the conflict in the story. So when she breaks the spatula, maybe she goes, oh no, now what? Then she gets this idea. Maybe here, instead of a junk drawer, we could feature her with a thought bubble with a toolbox. Okay, then you show the toolbox with her grabbing the hammer. She's got the hammer, like the stars indicating the hammer. Then she goes back out to the grill. Now, I would show her flipping the steak. If you want to show her hand, just make sure the hand has the same outfit she has here, but I think it would be a little bit more clear if we were to actually show her a side view of her with her hand and she's flipping the steak. All right. Then she takes the steak off the grill with the hammer and places it on the the um, the plate. Now, finally, I would add another frame at the end where she's actually sitting at the table with a smile on her face, enjoying her steak. Okay, does that make sense? So that to me is and I just want to mention that I have been mentioning this to other students. I'm not saying that's what you have to do. I'm not trying to direct your assignment. I'm just merely offering suggestion. At that point, you want to start thinking about how to connect. We don't want to connect each individual narrative frame with an arrow, because I think there could be a more engaging way of doing that. So what you want to think about is how you're going to engage, how you're going to connect these frames. Think about the lumberjack example where the frames were connected with hairs from his beard. A couple of other students have considered using a dog in their narrative, so connecting the individual frames with dog paw tracks. So try to find a conceptually consistent visual element to connect the different frames of the narrative. It looks like you're not going to use shapes for the narrative, and that's fine. So you're not placing circles or squares. These just have like this open relationship with the picture plane, and that's great. That's a fantastic idea. One little suggestion in that case is, instead of using shapes, to place the narrative in, maybe place little shapes behind the narrative. That's going to create some depth, and it's going to kind of isolate each frame in the narrative without actually physically separating it from the picture plane. Do you see what I'm saying? And a great example of that is, again, back in those examples that I used. Remember the red lumberjack? Well, the second example was that guy with the fire poker that was used to break the hornet's nest. If you take a look at that one, that's an example of what I'm talking about, where each individual frame isn't framed with something, with an object, but there's a shape behind it. So take a look at that. It's a very interesting technique. All right, Calista, great job. I hope my comments make sense. Please let me know, and let me know if there's anything I can clarify moving forward. Great job. Thanks for sharing.